Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the editor-in-chief, founder of the website. Been actually covering tabletop gaming for, this is my 9th year, actually. So welcome aboard. I actually have been running around trying to take care of things to get the show out on time. I know I started the stream about a minute late. But let me fill up my drink here. So tonight is Thursday, May 9th, 2019, and this is the 300th episode of The Daily Dope. Pretty amazing. 300 episodes. And Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review is hanging out here in chat. Very cool as I put my soda down there. Kabuki Kids chiming in. Cool deal. Good to have people already popping up in chat. So very, very nice. Tonight's show, do want to point out, we are going to be taking a first look and paging through Things from the Flood from Free League Publishing and Modiphius Entertainment. This actually hit stores on I want to say May 31st, I believe. So Kabuki Kid says, congrats on 300 episodes. Thank you very much. Do want to point out, I will mention this a few times throughout tonight's show, I am celebrating 300 episodes with people who are watching live. So if you're hanging around at the end of the show, I have a special giveaway, but you have to be watching live. Bum, bum, bum. So, anyway, speaking of giveaways, I'm going to mention this every show until the 18th. I am going to be giving away my copy of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. This is the limited edition copy for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. It is, I always point out that these limited edition books usually sell for about $100 to $120 in the secondary market because they are printed in very limited numbers. So I don't need 2 copies of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So if I can reach 2,000 subscribers, which I know that's asking a lot. If I can hit 2,000 subscribers by May 18th, as long as you comment on a video, and of course, every comment actually gets you an entry. Although, don't go crazy on the comments. Otherwise, I'll actually sit there and be like, you're out. Disqualified for spam. But anyway, I was going to say 2,000 subscribers. And if you make a comment on any video from May 7th through the 18th, does not necessarily have to be on my video that I did for the first look through the standard edition. Anyway, you will be in the running. So very, very cool. So wanted to point that out, and also wanted to mention the special contest for those of you watching live. Well, I won't reveal what it is until the end of the show. So, and it's gonna be funny because you will have to be watching live, or I mean like right after the show streams, to have an opportunity to win. And maybe there's multiple opportunities to win. I don't know. So do want to mention that this is a live stream, obviously enough. We do have you and Double K, Kabuki Kid, watching live. If you are watching live on YouTube, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I prevent some of the stranger commenters, try to keep them at bay. But if you are watching live, if you have a question, want to say hello, or maybe as we go through Things from the Flood, maybe there's something you want me to stop and focus on a little closer, by all means, chime in. I do pay attention to chat. and I will respond. There is some news today. I've got some news pieces because I like to do my tabletop gaming news every day. So, got, hey, Nefarious Coel is popping in. Yes, the strange commenter has arrived. Yeah, that's why we don't keep chat on screen. It's because of Nefarious. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, got some news. Let's jump into the news. Do want to point out there are people out there who can't stand the tabletop gaming news. All right, whatever, what have you. If you are one of those people, look in the show notes below. There are, well, not at the moment right now, it's a live stream. But if you are watching after the fact, there are show notes. So there are timestamps you can skip right past all the tabletop gaming news. Although there isn't a ton today, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on tabletop gaming news today. So let's jump right on into it because the Captain is Dead saga is about to continue for AEG. There's a third entry in the series, and I've got the dope on Dangerous Planet. The intrepid crew escaped the alien prison in lockdown. Now they've been assigned a third captain. Well, we know what's going to happen to them. They're on their first away mission, taking their shuttlecraft to the surface of an abandoned alien planet. They're tasked with discovering alien relics that may point to why the alien empire detests our space fleet so much, and how we may one day forge peace. Of course, your new captain was very diplomatic, and upon encountering giant bugs that may very well be the reason the aliens abandoned the planet, he chose to attempt to communicate. The bugs communicated by biting his head clean off. So now, once again, without a captain, the crew must attempt to complete the mission by exploring tunnels and obtaining relics, all while fighting off a swarm of bugs. The Captain is Dead Dangerous Planet uses the mechanisms of the Captain is Dead in a whole new way. Through exploration and area defense, you'll try to survive long enough to obtain the necessary relics, but should the bugs attack the shuttlecraft enough times, you won't be able to escape. The Dangerous Planet tunnel system is modular for easier and harder challenges. The Captain is Dead Dangerous Planet is for 2 to 7 players, ages 14 and up, plays it in around 60 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $49.99 when it arrives on July 12th. I did not play the original Captain is Dead, but I did play and review Lockdown. Really enjoyed it. I was actually kind of surprised. Well, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, usually AEG puts out some pretty good games, but I don't know, there was just something about it that, I don't know, maybe it was the artwork, the kind of weird geometrical artwork that they used, the art style, which I'm not necessarily a big fan of. But yeah, I was kind of like, hey, this game's good. We enjoyed it. So, all right. So we've got some folks chatting away. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Do want to point out, if you just tuned in, if you're just stopping in, I do have a special giveaway for folks watching live tonight. So hang around to the end of the show. All right, let's move on to our next news piece, because the latest supplement for Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars role-playing game arrived in stores today. And I've got the dope on Rise of the Separatists. You know what? Let me grab a quick sip here, because it's sort of a little dry. It's always dry down here in the Duct Tape Studios. So yeah, so you and you would say, I think we're becoming regulars on these live streams. You are. It's kind of funny when I first started out and started, it's like the audience kind of like rotates. So there were some folks who were watching like every night, and then for some reason they don't show up anymore. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I ticked them off. I have no idea. Anyway, so let's talk about the Rise of the Separatists. For generations, the Jedi Knights have been guardians of peace and justice in the Republic. But now they face a challenge like never before. With the Battle of Geonosis, the Clone Wars have begun. Battles rage across the galaxy as the Jedi and the Grand Army of the Republic, that sounds like straight out of the American Civil War, fight back against the sinister agents and indefatigable droid armies of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Yes, it's like straight out of U.S. history. It's the American Civil War. Meanwhile, the diplomats and representatives of the Galactic Senate work for peace and forge political alliances. Amid the chaos, looters, salvagers, and other fringers profit from the detritus of war, or simply try to survive. Enter the Clone Wars with Rise of the Separatists, a new era sourcebook for Star Wars role-playing. Rise of the Separatists explores the early days of the Clone Wars and is fully compatible with every Star Wars role-playing line, including Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny. Within this 144-page sourcebook, you'll find expanded player character options, new weapons, gear, and vehicles, as well as profiles of famous Clone Wars era characters, GM guidance for running a campaign in this era, and more. Rise of the Separatists is in stores as of today, and it does carry an MSRP of $39.95. So yes, Nefarious says, so FFG's on to prequel content now? Yup. They've been doing some prequel stuff for a while, I thought. I gotta point out, okay, of course, like everybody out there, the, what do we call it now? You know, it's because they're like the prelude movies. Even though they came after, you know, Star Wars, they come before it in canon. Obviously enough, most Star Wars fans are not overjoyed with those films. I gotta be honest, I never watched Clone Wars. Ever. I never watched any of these Star Wars animated shows. Rebels, any of that stuff. I don't know why, because I dig Star Wars. Maybe it was the animation style. The animation style's kind of odd. Kind of real cartoonish, in my opinion. Plus, I don't know. I don't know. Kind of weird. I know, and I'm a Star Wars fan, so how can I call myself a real Star Wars fan if I've never watched Rebels or Clone Wars? They did. So, there is a new 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adventure available in PDF. I can say this, but Kobold Press cannot refer to it as Dungeons & Dragons. But it is from Kobold Press, and it's at Drive-Thru RPG. Here's the dope on Necropolis of the Mailed Fist. Doom has come to Stormhold. A rotting wind has blighted the capital city of the Empire, the Iron Falcon, followed by an invasion force of long-dead warriors. Before the undead phalanxes tore down the Tower of Triumph, the Council of Six divined that the source of the siege was the necropolis of the Mailed Fist. So they shipped the fist out? Is that what they mean by mailed? No. For 13 generations, the Empire interred its sacred dead and mythic relics in the necropolis, but the sins of the first Emperor have finally brought down hellish retribution, and now something unimaginably old and evil dwells within. Can you defeat it before all is lost? Necropolis of the Mailed Fist is a punishing one-session tournament dungeon. Ouch. Designed for 4 8th-level 5th edition characters. Monsters and constructs guarding the necropolis can overwhelm the careless or unwary. The traps and hazards protecting its relics can slay an adventurer who makes a single misstep. Curses are everywhere, along with dangers that can destroy magic items. Put your affairs in order before you depart, heroes. Soon your remains may join the sacred dead in the necropolis of the Mailed Fist. As pointed out, it is an adventure for 8th level characters. It is fully compatible with the 5th edition of the world's first role-playing game. Find that funny that Kobold Press says that in their sell sheet info, because Kobold Press does Pathfinder and D&D stuff. So they're not sticking with the world's greatest role-playing game or world's most popular role-playing game, which is usually how it's referred. So Nefarious Coel says, Mortuary of the Instant Messaging Hand. FFG is wildly overpriced. Yes, I agree. And it's too bad that Lucasfilm, their agreement was basically that no PDFs. It's all got to be physical books. No PDFs, unless you want to be a pirate. Fly that Jolly Roger. Anyway, the 44-page adventure Necropolis of the Mailed Fist is available from Drive-Thru RPG for $9.99. I gotta say, I have never been a fan of tournament adventures. And that goes back to when I was a teenager. I was in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school. And there's a suburb just outside Chicago called Oak Park. People who are real familiar with, the architect, the famous architect, Wright. I don't know why I can't think of his actual name. Whatever. But we were in a tournament at this. They used to have these twice a year. It was like a weekend thing at this like community center, and they would bring in a good amount of gamers. They're usually about 300 gamers in this community center, and we had a blast. We would go. It was like every 6 months they would do it, and my friends and I, Elliot Miller, my best friend, Scott Weagle, Tim Phelan, and there were a couple other guys who were with us. So we end up in this tournament. Thank you, Kabuki Kid, Frank Lloyd Wright. Couldn't get the Frank Lloyd part. I was like, and I used to actually tend bar at a resort that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and I can't understand why I couldn't think of him. Hey, Viper Dave's here. Thank you. Thanks for popping in, Viper Dave. So anyway, while I'm telling this, why don't I just go like this? I feel goofy when I'm like telling other stories about stuff. There's like the news images going past, and I'm like not talking about what I'm showing. But I will jump back into the news in just a moment because we've got one more news piece to tackle. But anyway, so we were in this tournament, and we were kind of broken up into two groups, and it was timed. We had a limited amount of time, and there were prizes, and we had to buy tickets because usually this Oak Park like community center had this weekend thing. It was like Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and Elliot didn't live that far away, so we'd all stay at Elliot's house, and then I'll take the bus over into Oak Park because we lived in Chicago, and we take the bus into Oak Park and go to this for the 3 days. So anyway, so we're in this tournament. It's a timed event, and it's like 4 different groups, and the guy running ours, who was like a teenager, the guy running our session had to keep getting up to go ask his sister stuff in another room about the adventure. So we actually figured out the whole, what the whole riddle or whatever it was for us to win. But according to, I guess the rules or whatever, we had run out of time, and we were like, this is bullshit. Like, you had to keep going into the other room, and they're playing, and we're sitting here, twiddling our thumbs because you didn't understand what you were running. So we were pissed. So it's like, okay, so after that, I was kind of like, tournament adventures. Tournament adventures tend to be like overly lethal and a lot of player elimination and stuff like that. It's just not my kind of role playing. So, hey, we got Dan from No Enemies here popping in too. All right, so we got kind of the usual crowd hanging out. So let's finish up with the last news piece because there's another fantasy related RPG setting that actually caught my eye. And it's geared toward the absolutely free basic fantasy role-playing system. Here's the dope on Odysseys and Overlords. Everybody's got to have a blah, blah, blah and blah, blah, blah. The mortal lands are divided. A dozen kingdoms lie scattered across the world, separated by dangerous wilds filled with bandits and monsters. The bravest mortals act as adventurers, guiding travelers between the kingdoms, killing monsters to thin their numbers, and plundering ruins in search of the lost treasures of the Golden Age. This is the world of Odysseys and Overlords. There are 2 books that are available. There is the Player's Guide and the Game Master's Guide. First off, the Player's Guide. This book is written specifically for anyone who would like to assume the role of a player in an Odysseys and Overlords game. Within this book, you'll find the rules and systems that will help you create and play a character to tell stories and go on grand adventures with your Odysseys and Overlords group. The Odysseys and Overlords Player's Guide contains all the rules you'll need to create and play a character for use with, let's just say, O&O. 4 playable genera. I guess that's the term they're using for like cultures, races, what have you. Abyss-Kissed, human, spell-scorched, and wild folk. 5 playable classes: Bard, Cleric, Fighter, Magic User, and Thief. There's over 100 spells, and an overview of the world of Odysseys and Overlords. The Game Master's Guide contains encounter design notes and random encounters for use with the game, character creation and advancement notes and rules permutations, over 50 classic monsters reimagined through the lens of their roles in the world of Odysseys and Overlords, treasure tables, magic items, and rules for building strongholds. There's also an overview of the kingdoms of Odysseys and Overlords. You can snag the 56-page Player's Guide for $3.95 and the 63-page GM's Guide for $4.95 from Drive-Thru RPG. I mention this because this is the first time I think I've run across any project that's associated with basic fantasy role-playing that's charging money. So everything's usually absolutely free. But this does seem kind of interesting. It's supposed to be kind of a grim and gritty kind of setting, role-playing game setting. So kind of interesting there. And of course, as I mentioned, these are available in PDF from Drive-Thru RPG. The Gaming Gang, and thus the Daily Dope, are affiliates of Drive-Thru RPG. So if you are going to swing over to any of the One Bookshelf websites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you do make a purchase, we get a small portion of that, and that all adds up. So, Dan from No Enemies here is congratulating me on 300 episodes. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Never thought I'd see it, to be honest. So, I don't know. Yeah, 300 episodes. Can I tell you? I am taking tomorrow off. So, I have decided, yes, I am going to celebrate my 300 episodes by taking the 301st off. So the show will actually return on Monday. Do want to point out, I'm going to point this out once again. Softcover basic role-playing core book is $5. And yeah, if you buy it, the physical book. I'm talking about the PDFs. There are no... I'm not aware of it. I'm sure somebody out there is going to prove me wrong outside of the Odysseys and Overlords. But I have not run across... If you go to the basic fantasy role-playing game website, you can download anything digitally. It's all free. And it's actually a really cool free role-playing game that is open game license. There's a lot of stuff from like first edition, second edition. There's even little tastes of third edition in it. So it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty nice. Yeah, and for basic fantasy role-playing, yeah, you're getting that book at cost. That $5 is at cost. They're not making any money. The author of that actually tweeted me one day saying, "Hey man, really appreciate you mentioning basic fantasy role playing." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So, anyway, like most of you guys are regulars, as I pointed out, some of you might have tuned in a little bit late. You got to stick around to the end of the show. I've got some giveaways going on, but you got to be watching live to be able to be in the running. Anyway, so do want to mention that if you are a fan of the Gaming Gang as well as the Daily Dope, they are really not for-profit endeavors. So if you like the show, if you like the website, if you like the channel here on YouTube, please consider making a small donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund and the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Yes, that's right, Lil Bub's Big Fund does provide grant monies to organizations throughout the United States who care for special needs animals who are awaiting adoption. Yes, these special needs animals might be older, they might require medication, maybe they're deaf, maybe they're blind, maybe they have like some weird genetic mutations like Lil Bub does. But she's such a sweetie. Regardless, these pets do deserve to find good homes, and they will repay the love they receive tenfold. Guarantee you that. Cats I've always had have always been shelter cats. They weren't special needs cats, but they were shelter cats. Although I have to admit, I think Smokey is kind of a mutant. A little bit. Because her legs are really short. So anyway, to learn a little bit more about Lil Bub's Big Fund, I know it's been a while since we actually watched this. Let's take a peek at a quick video. Hey, silly video. I was like hitting the little button to change scenes, nothing happened. So Nefarious says, Lil Bubba Hotep. There was a regular who used to watch the show that every time I do a little bub thing would, and I think Nefarious was actually watching the show at the time, and they used to come up with like just every day would be some like take on Lil Bub. So it was kind of funny. It was actually pretty funny. So, all right. Anyway, saw a video that was initially turned off. Just trying to see because there was a lot of stuff going on in chat. So I know there's a discussion about the D&D Cyclopedia, as well as the basic fantasy role playing. And I had always thought the yes, Bruce Campbell. Yes, Bubba Hotep. Yeah, that is a pretty good movie. That is a pretty funny movie. With Ozzie Davis, too. Ozzie Davis is in it. But I was going to say, I had always thought the D&D Cyclopedia, they have not actually kind of like laid it out really well. It was always kind of like just a lot of stuff just like kind of piled in there. So a little confusing, I think. I'm not positive because it has been a long time. I think I saw a scan of it. In fact, it might be a scan of it that they sell online. I don't know. But speaking of D&D, I should mention there is that big month-long May sale over at Drive-Thru RPG and DM's Guild, and it's like 20% or more off of just about anything D&D right now, and at all different editions too. So it's possible for those who are thinking about checking out the D&D Cyclopedia that they might want to take a peek because it might be on sale. So yes, Kabuki Kid says, yeah, the rules cyclopedia definitely could have been laid out better. Well, let's be honest. I mean, any of the first edition D&D, that could have been laid out better too. So, all right. So before we get into things from the flood, I do want to mention that my Game Master tip of the day today, just share that real quick, was as a Game Master, when one of your players come up with something like crazy, completely off the wall or illogical, don't necessarily automatically say no. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. It's better to sit back and ask, how would you pull that off? You know, how are you planning to do that? Because a lot of times players come up with crazy things that when they explain what they're thinking and looking they have their character do, there is some logic to it. So and once again, I'm a big proponent of when you're running a role-playing game, you are trying to create moments that are going to be memorable. People will remember these decades later. That's my big thing. I always aim to make my sessions of game mastering memorable, as opposed to, we played Call of Cthulhu last week and I don't remember what happened. My friends remember stuff that happened back in the 80s. And as I say with Elliot, my best friend Elliot Miller over at voiceofv.com, he couldn't tell you what he had for lunch yesterday, but he can go into great detail about games I ran 30 some years ago. So that's how I kind of look at it. So it's, don't always just be so quick as a game master to be like, nah, no. So Dan's asking, will I be at the World Board Game, isn't it World Board Game Championships or something like that? Answer to that is no. I don't even know if I can get to Origins. That's what happens, I would do a Kickstarter, but I'm so afraid that it'd be like, all right, so I'm doing a Kickstarter trying to raise like, say, $5,000 for the year. I am so afraid that it would just be like, nobody would be interested, even though I get 100,000 unique visitors or more every month to thegaminggang.com. Granted, this live stream, it's hit or miss. Sometimes I get a couple thousand views on a video. Others I get like 40 all time. So, you just never know. But the whole crowdfunding thing, I'd be so embarrassed if it was like, oh yeah, well, trying to go to Origins, Gen Con, San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, Spiel. So those are just 5 examples of conventions and that I've been approved to attend, at least in the past. The only one that I'm positively going to go to is going to be Gen Con. Don't know. But like I said, the whole Kickstarter thing, I would feel like so bizarre. If it's like, my goal is $5,000. Because I would also like to, get some camera equipment that actually isn't, like I say, it's the reason why I call this the Duct Tape Studios. But like I said, I'd be so embarrassed. It'd be like, oh yeah, well, I've got like $100 in pledges. It'd be like, duh. So anyway. All right, what's coming up on the show? And then we're jumping into things from the flood. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to take tomorrow off. Actually going to do some gaming too, so that's cool. So on Monday's show, we are going to take a first look at Sheolia. This is coming to Kickstarter. I have not cracked this open. That's how I operate as far as like the unboxings and stuff. I like to come into it where it's like, I have no idea what this is. This is coming to Kickstarter. I believe it's the end of the month. So we're going to take a first look at this on Monday. It is for 2 to 4 players. So it's kind of a battle game. So that'll be on Monday's show. Tuesday, I will be reviewing Mystic Vale, which is what I was going to be doing tomorrow if there had been a show. But I'm going to review Mystic Vale, and we are actually also going to take a look at, I actually grabbed it and brought it over here, as opposed to me saying, hey, we're going to take a look at it. And then it's like, but I don't have it over here. We're actually going to take a look at the new Harmony expansion for Mystic Vale, which is, I think this is coming out next week, if I remember correctly. So, that's on Tuesday's show. Wednesday's show, I'm going to review Warfighter, the modern edition from Dan Verson Games. I had a chance to play this a bit over the weekend, last weekend. I'm going to dig in, play a little bit more this weekend. I'm going to try to get my nephew Cameron playing it too, because it's not necessarily just a solo. It's not a solitaire game like a lot of the Dan Verson games are. All right, so Dan from No Enemies here has got to take off. Hey, Dan, thank you very much. Everybody look forward to Dan's show on Saturday that provides the latest tabletop gaming news. Usually it's conflict simulation related, I believe. But good to see you. Have a good one. So, anyway, moving right along, on Thursday's show, I will be reviewing Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is hitting stores on the 21st. So, I have already started reading this. I was reading this last night, so I will have that. So, yes, Warfighter is cooperative, but it's also solo, too. But a lot of times, like the Dan Verson games like Napoleon, Apache Thunderbolt, or is it Thunderbolt Apache? I always mix those two up. Phantom Leader Deluxe, which I love. It's right behind me. Those are strictly solitaire. Those are really solitaire games. Whereas Warfighter, play it solitaire, or you can play with other players who are representing the soldiers. So, pretty cool. I've only been playing it solitaire, so I gotta point that out. There you go. Yes, Thunderbolt Apache Leader. Very, very cool. So anyway, so that's on Thursday. We're going to do that. Then on Friday, I will be reviewing Traveler Ascension Imperial Warrant from Daring Play Games. That's right. I don't know. I think I might end up being like the first reviewer or first person doing a review out there. We will have to see. We'll have to see what's going on. Okay, so that is what's cooking on next week's show. So I'm sure folks are going to be tuning in because they want to get a first look at Things from the Flood, which is from Free League Publishing and Modiphius Entertainment. It's designed by Chris Ainsworth, Ricard Antroia. Sorry, I'm just trying to, doing my best to try to pronounce these names. Niles Heinz and Simon Stallenhag, with artwork and design by Rini Rosenberg and Simon Stallenhag. The 216-page hardcover will be available on May 31st. I believe the PDF will be out at the same time. It's going to carry an MSRP of $45.99 at retailers in the U.S. Take a peek at the Fria Lagan website, because a lot of times I do see that their website, if you actually order from their website, you can get it cheaper than online retailers. So let's move on over to the other camera. So here we got Things from the Flood. Yes, so if you were a fan of Tales from the Loop, this is the follow-up. So this is the follow-up to Tales from the Loop. It's supposed to be like the decade after, right? So Tales from the Loop is the 80s. The players have characters who are all like tweens, really young teens, and of course it's a really wild system, actually. Very, very interesting, and it's all based on Simon Stallenhag's artwork. Really, really interesting. It's got pretty much it utilizes Free League's 6-sided die system for the most part, just like they've gotten like Mutant Year Zero and so on and so forth. But won a bunch of awards as well. So this is supposed to be the 90s. The loop is actually gone as far as I understand. I have not looked through this. I have not cheated. I have not taken a peek. In fact, that is the first thing I did. It's the first thing I've seen now is opening this up and seeing the map, which looks almost exactly like the Tales from the Loop map. But so it's supposed to be the 90s. I understand that this is supposed to be darker, deadlier. The player characters are now supposed to be like older teens in the 90s. And the kind of kid gloves come off as far as not killing the player characters. Because in Tales from the Loop, it was pretty much laid out in the book that game masters shouldn't really look to kill off the characters. So I believe that is no longer the case with this. So let me grab a sip, and we'll read some of the flavor text on the back here. And then we're going to dive in. Somewhere out there beyond the cordons, beyond the fields and marshes, abandoned machines roamed like stray dogs. They wandered about impatiently, restless, in the new wind sweeping through the country. They smelled something in the air, something unfamiliar. Welcome back to the world of the loop. Things are different now. Simon Stonehog's paintings of Swedish retro futuristic suburbia, populated by fantastic machines and strange creatures, have won global acclaim. The award-winning Tales from the Loop role-playing game was released in 2017 and lets you experience this amazing world firsthand. Now you can return to the loop in the standalone sequel game. So this is standalone. It is a follow-up, but you do not need Tales from the Loop. That continues the story into the 1990s. But remember, this time you can die right there. Is telling us that it's going to be a bit different. Key features: dive deeper into the secrets of the loop and experience the two game settings updated to the 1990s. The Malaren Islands in Sweden and Boulder City, Nevada in the US. New rules for scars and death. The stakes are higher and the risks greater. Investigate mysteries and overcome trouble using fast and effective rules based on the award-winning Year Zero game engine. Play the 4 complete scenarios included, tied together into a campaign called Prophets of Pandora. And then there's just some quotes, some review quotes about Tales from the Loop. So let's get on in. Taking a look here. So I am excited to read this because I really enjoyed Tales from the Loop. I thought Tales from the Loop was really well done. Like the artwork. To me, though, Tales from the Loop and probably Things from the Flood makes for a good game for a limited number of sessions. I honestly can't picture playing Tales from the Loop like every week for a year. I don't see it having that much going on. But I think if you were to put together like 12 sessions, like there's also Our Friends the Machines, which is an adventure supplement for Tales from the Loop. I think that's perfect. This is pretty cool for even doing one-shots as well. For players who are looking for like a Stranger Things vibe, this also works well for that as well. So we've got Life After the Flood, Stories from the Flood. Now we get a little thing about role-playing and the dice. So we've got... Do I have my... Yes, I do. I do have my free league. Tales from the Loop dice. Ta-da! My Tales from the Loop dice that they were kind enough to send me back when I did my Tales from the Loop review. Yeah, they're just six-siders. Exploding six-siders. So we've got some of the new artwork here. It's kind of going through an example of play. So, like many modern role-playing games, Tales from the Loop does work kind of based on scenes, from scene to scene. Old school role-playing games don't necessarily tend to operate that way. But with Tales from the Loop, it does, which is fine. I mean, it's more of a storytelling game than, say, an old school approach, even though this is supposed to be in the 90s now. Hey, Flaming Huron's popping in. Good to see you, Flaming Huron. Welcome to episode 300. So we're just getting some info here. Truth about the machine cancer. Huh. Looks like we had some the rise and fall of the tech age. Interesting. Yeah, because like I said, as far as I understand, the loop is supposed to be gone. Because in Tales from the Loop, you're either playing the setting in Sweden, or if you want more of an American-centric, you've got Boulder City, Nevada. But supposedly, if I heard correctly, I think the loop is supposed to be gone. The loop is shut down. So, make the fantastical unpredictable. It's talking about different scientific disasters in this alternate 1990s. So, yeah, it looks as if a lot of electronics and technical equipment has like rotted away. There was a section there talking about the marine, or I should say the machine cancer. It's kind of weird. So we got another map here. Do want to point out, as we're flipping on through this, we are going to get into the 4 adventures. So a little bit of little spoilers we might be running across. Yes, thank you, Flaming Huron. Yes, 300 episodes, pretty wild. So I do want to point out, stick around to the end of the show, because I've got a special giveaway for people watching live. So anyway, we're going to get we're back to the other setting, the Swedish setting. That was one of the things that I thought was pretty cool with the first Tales from the Loop. And I know there were some people who didn't necessarily like that. The fact that you had the 2 different options. You had the Swedish, like, island, and then you had Boulder City. But the thing was, Boulder City, all the US stuff was actually like stretch goals for the Kickstarter for Tales from the Loop. So the stuff people were complaining about, well, I wish it was they just decided on one setting and then just, stayed with the one setting, not had the 2 options. Well, it turned out, if they had only gone with one setting, it would not have been the United States. So here we got the Hoover Dam disaster. Ew, that's pretty creepy. Gosh, that's funny too, because I had a modem like that. Good old US Robotics. Okay, I didn't have like the living eyeballs and stuff in it, but I did have a US Robotics modem like that. Okay, so one of the cool things too I liked about Tales from the Loop, and they're doing it again with Things from the Flood, is they'll toss in some stuff where it's like, what were the popular songs? Like here it's saying the highly published media events, top 10 tabletop RPGs. Cult? No, I don't think so. I think you guys are wrong on that one. So I got a kick out of that. There we go. 10 computer games, 10 must-haves. So we've got Teens in America, things to do in your spare time. So we're seeing the Loop Project in Boulder City. I honestly think this is the same, might be the same exact map that we had before. Although it says down here it's supposed to be 1994. So this is the Boulder City location. The Teen. Okay. Lowe was gone when school started in the fall, and I thought school would be unbearable without him. But amid the excitement of starting junior high school, all the natural laws had been upset. Just imagine the miracle of Jimmy Craftling's unexpected onset of acne and his amazing status descent from king of middle school to completely anonymous 7th grader. It was as if the decontamination of the loop had removed something from inside me and had left me watch clean and smelling of aftershave. Anyway, a few weeks later I had new friends who smoked cigarettes, and by St. Lucy's Day I wore a leather jacket and enjoyed my first drinking binge. Alright, so it's your character creation here. So you're creating teenagers from the age of 14 to 19. Tales from the Loop, I think they cut you off at 13. I thought that was the highest. Then we've got the different kind of character archetypes. Party animal, raver, rocker, seeker, snob and street kid. Character creation's pretty quick and easy in this as well, so it doesn't take that long. All right, so then we're going to start getting into how the characters are kind of pulled together, relationships, hooks, anchors. I know we are looking at Things from the Flood, but I do want to point out, if you're into the whole kind of like kids solving mysteries, or teenagers solving mysteries, I have to point out Kids on Bikes from Hunters Entertainment and Renegade Game Studios. Even if you were going to be running, like, say, Tales from the Loop, or if you're running Things from the Flood, I recommend the section from Kids on Bikes, which really goes into a lot of cool detail about how you can actually tie the player characters together. That makes a lot of sense, and it's basically just asking some questions. And there's different in-depth ways of doing it. You can kind of do it like just on the surface, ask a few really quick questions, or you can get really detailed. So pretty cool. All right, so we're getting into the actual mechanics of the game a little bit. Items, shame, and scars, doing the almost impossible, answering questions. So, in essence, what you're looking at is you roll a certain number of dice based on your attribute or your skill plus attribute, if I remember correctly, and you're just looking to roll successes. Just looking to roll successes. That is basically the whole, and then we're going to see right here. Chances to succeed. So you just have to roll sixes. Is really what it is. So Kabuki Kid says, I'm honestly pretty ignorant to this system. Only learned about it from this show. So definitely check out Tales from the Loop. You know, there is no, as far as I understand, now I might be wrong, I don't believe Free League Publishing has a quick start. They might, but I don't recall. I don't remember off the top of my head if there is or not. But this is a very, very interesting setting as far as Tales from the Loop, because it's like Tales from the Loop is kind of like the 80s, you know, but not the 80s, you know. So. One thing though is the way that setting is set up, that game is set up, is the player characters are kids. They are kids. Would it be all that difficult for you to kit bash it so you could play adults in the game? Yeah, pretty simple. But you would have to kind of come up with your own kind of skills and things like that. So, talking about, this is another aspect that I thought was pretty cool in both Tales from the Loop and now Things in the from the Flood, is it kind of talks about like breaking down mysteries, how to present the game to the players, like the differences of how you have to kind of play this a bit differently than you would most other games, because the player characters are teenagers, and the way teenagers are treated is completely different than the way adults are treated in the real world. That was the same with Tales from the Loop as well. So there's a lot of good info about that in there. Then it was basically breaking down, how do you present the mystery? How do you kind of peel the layers of the onion away? So, very nicely done. This system itself, and I'm taking a stab at Things from the Flood is going to be the same kind of thing, is you do not have to be someone with a vast amount of experience in role-playing games to really dive in and get the most out of this. This really is aimed at both longtime gamers and newcomers to the hobby as well. One thing I did appreciate about Tales from the Loop, and we saw in this as well, is not a lot of wasted space, a lot of gaming information, a lot of gaming material. Plus, we didn't have to waste a lot of time of what is role-playing game? Dark Places and Demigorgons, bloat games you play as kids too. I have heard of Dark Places and Demigorgons. I have not seen it. I have not seen it whatsoever. There was a rash of systems that were coming out right after Stranger Things became a big hit, and all of a sudden it was like the craze on Drive-Thru RPG. Everybody had a PDF for some game where the kids were, the players were playing kids and stuff like that. Tales from the Loop actually predates Stranger Things. So, not the role-playing game itself. I think it was about the same time as the show. But the artwork in that obviously predates Stranger Things. Does oh, there you go. Kabuki's asking right there. Does this predate Stranger Things? Yes. Simon Stollenhag's artwork does predate Stranger Things. He's been doing his artwork for quite a while. So, and that's what the game is based on. But interestingly enough, Tales from the Loop kind of came out right when Stranger Things was just coming out, and people were like, "Whoa!" So there was kind of that, like, I think that's one of the reasons why this was so popular. Tales from the Loop was so popular. Right, it's basically going through the mystery landscape, collaborative storytelling. So we're actually into. Is this the first part of the adventure? That's kind of tied together? No. Oh no, these are just kind of examples. We're going to get to the adventure in a few pages here. Science of Love. But I definitely do actually dig the artwork. The artwork's got like this weird vibe to it. And Stallhag does have art books that are, so for example, Tales from the Loop is an art book. Things from the Flood is actually an art book, same title. So you of course, they are available. Here we go. So here we go into the first of the 4 adventures. We'll kind of flip through these a little bit. As I mentioned, if you're somebody who's hoping to play Things from the Flood, you might not want to check this out. So and the way the adventures actually work is they'll give you the option for either setting. You can either play it in the Swedish setting, or you can play it in the Boulder City, Nevada setting. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So we get Of Flesh and Steel. Where's this? Prophets of Pandora. 3 scientists with bold ambitions, a journey through time and space, a secret worth killing over. In these 4 mysteries, the teens will face their greatest challenge ever. And for most of them, probably their first challenge. So we've got Prophets of Pandora. We got Of Flesh and Steel. When the teens find a local kid dead, they soon find themselves in the center of a mystery threatening the whole population of the Malaran Islands, or I guess Boulder City. What kind of creature is the machine fetus? Well, that's weird. And who are these strange robots guarding the secrets? So yes, there are robots. There are like a lot of transport is actually through like airships. They're like anti-grav ships. So Fleming Huron says, it's fine unless I see a lot of obvious spoilers. I don't find it terrible watching your flip-throughs. It's a page-through, man. It's not flip-through. If I were flipping through, it'd be like this. There you go. We saw it. Okay, so moving right along through here. Restless spirits. NPCs and creatures. So these are the robots here. That's kind of weird. It's like a robot shaman. The ugliness. A strange virus is spreading among the teenagers in the area. What, measles? A disease that distorts the afflicted's looks. School friends no longer dare to go to class of fear to show how they look. Long since established power hierarchies crumble. Rumors are stirring about scientists in bodysuits collecting the most affected teenagers. What is really going on? The truth. You can't handle the truth. Countdown for the ugliness. So, introducing the teens, introducing the mystery. One thing you'll see too is with the adventures and that, there's always like a little flow chart. It's kind of pointing you from scene to scene. And we got some locations with some maps. I have to be honest, with a lot of the more modern like storytelling kind of role-playing games where it's really focused on story, that as opposed to the story unfolds through the player actions. Sometimes I don't know why we have a lot of maps. So, especially when it's like, there's like no confrontation taking place, kind of throws me off sometimes. It's like, I don't really need a map. But then again, on the flip side, I'm sure there's players out there or consumers out there who'd be like, hey, this is an adventure, man. How come there's no maps? I know nothing really happens in that shack, but there should be a map. Let me get some more of the artwork here. Kid smoking a cigarette out on the snow. Yeah, we got the NPCs and creatures. Then we got travelers. Something weird is taking place on the Malaran Islands. Reality itself seems to blur. Things and even people change without warning. When a lost kid is found, seemingly mute, a mystery begins to unravel. Who, I should say, what or who is behind these strange happenings? So these are all tied together. So we got that little flow chart once again. Missing girl found, now mute. It's like missing girl found, now new and improved. President of the UFO Society. There we go. Location 3, the beach. Okay, and then the confrontation. We got the NPCs and creatures for this adventure. Yeah, see, the artwork is just always sort of like, you'd be looking at it and you're like, okay, so what is that supposed to be? But the artwork is just kind of like almost like slice of life sometimes. Where it just happens to be like, oh, look, it's a landscape with this like giant mech standing there. And then we've got Ash to Eternity. A storm is coming to the Malaran Islands. Deep underground, the prophets of Pandora are building a machine that will change everything. When one of the prophets goes into hiding, his daughter suddenly finds herself a target. The teens will have to brave terrible dangers and find the Hephaesterium before it's too late. Right, so it's talking about that machine cancer again. So, just like Tales from the Loop, there is a pretty long adventure campaign included, which is cool. Because one thing that bothers me is, especially when you're getting a core book, which in essence, this is a core book. This is a standalone game here. Always kind of bugs me when you pick up a core book and there isn't even a little introductory adventure in it. And then, of course, a lot of times it's like, oh, hey, this is the new game. Here's our PDF. But we don't have any adventures or anything for it. You're like, okay. All right, so then we get the backers. We get the character sheets. And we get our index. There we go. And we get the cover artwork without Things from the Flood up top. And that is a page through for Things from the Flood, the standalone sequel to Tales from the Loop. As I mentioned before, the 216-page hardcover is going to be available May 31st. It does carry an MSRP of $45.99. So, of course, I will have a review of Things from the Flood. Not next week, week after that. I will get a review out for Things from the Flood before it goes on sale. I can guarantee that. So, one thing I do want to point out is the end of this month, I will actually be going to Arizona. So, I will be helping my mom move. So, probably like the last couple of weekdays in May, I won't have a show. So, I'm just pointing that out a little bit. So, Fleming Huron says, if you don't get adventures, so long as they provide free ones and don't just throw them in beginner sets. Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for you to release. Let's say a fantasy role-playing game, right? To me, it doesn't make sense to release a fantasy role-playing game system. Let's say you've got like your core book, your player's guide, what have you, to just release that and not have anything else. No monster manuals. No information for the game masters. Just like Sammy, who does some of my role-playing game reviews, especially she handles a lot of the PDFs. There's the Elephant and the Macaw, which is actually looks really cool and sort of like a Brazilian role-playing game. She was going to do a review for it, and it's like the quick start, and it's almost like the first 60 pages of like the core book, and then that's it. It's like, how do you actually run that? It's like, what? So she even emailed me, said, I can't do a review on this. I don't know how I would do a review. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Move on to something else. I've sent you a bunch of stuff. I'm like, it's not like somebody's, it's not like it's even for sale. So, but yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, if you get, even if it's just like a retro clone open game license game, you should still have like a quick little adventure in your core book, especially if your core book's clocking in at like 200 pages or something like that. Anyway, so do want to mention, don't forget, if you are new to the show, I am doing a giveaway for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. This is the limited edition from Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. This is the latest adventure supplement. This is hitting stores on the 21st of the month. If I can get to 2,000 subscribers by May 18th, and if you comment on any video from May 7th through May 18th, I will actually send this out, and I will ship it anywhere in the world within reason, okay? Not like, yes, Soviet Russia. No, I don't think so. I don't think I get a lot of people like in Iran watching the show, but I will send that out. So that is one of the contests that's going on. As I mentioned a few times through the show, I do have a special giveaway for those who are watching live, and everybody wins. So if you are currently watching live, this is what you need to do. You need to email me at jeffmaclear@thegaminggang.com. Has to go to that email address. In the subject, just put Things from the Flood. I just simply need to know your name and your email address. And yes, you are going to get a copy of Things from the Flood in PDF when it becomes available. That's correct. Everybody who's watching live right now. So, it is not out in PDF just yet. I do believe it's probably hitting in PDF about the same time as it hits stores. That's kind of how usually Free League Publishing does it. So, regardless, by the end of the month, you will have a copy of the PDF of Things from the Flood. So, how do I know that you were watching live? Easy. The email has to be time-stamped within the next 30 minutes. So if you have been watching live, kicking it at your house, maybe you're watching on your phone, what have you, be sure to send an email to jeffmaclear@thegaminggang.com. I will put you on the list, and once Things from the Flood is available in PDF, you got a copy coming your way. Pretty cool. All right, so that is it for tonight's show. As I mentioned, I am going to take tomorrow off. I'm going to actually be doing some gaming. But on Monday, we are going to be taking a first look at Cholia. I'm taking a stab on the pronunciation here. So, Warring States, which is for 2 to 4 players. This box actually has some pretty good heft, too, as well. So, that will be on Monday's show. Thank you for joining me for episode 300. Fingers crossed. Pretty wild to have 300 episodes, seeing that I did have a near fatal heart attack between episode 1 and 300. So, pretty sweet. Anyway, as I like to always point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, please visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Those of you who are watching live and in chat, thank you for once again keeping me company. And by all means, shoot me that email. You've only got 30 minutes after the show ends for me to have received that email. So Flaming Huron says, was going to say you got a lot to play this weekend. So, yeah, I do. So Nefarious says he thinks it's Shaolin. No, there's no N at the end. That's why I'm pronouncing it the way I am. Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. Shaolia? Isn't that kind of close to what I was saying? I don't know. So anyway, all right. So I will be back on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend, a very safe weekend. Those of you who were in chat, thanks for keeping me company. All those who watched live, didn't pop in for chat, and maybe you're watching this after the fact. As always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.